want to thank the UAB for inviting us to talk about our foreign language project and about CLIL in our school. We can assure you that being in contact with the university also gives us lots of opportunities to keep in touch with new practices and also to face new challenges like this one, to come here with you. And well, this is why we call this presentation CLIL a Teenage Challenge, because it's been 16 years now since we implemented the CLIL program in our school. And we always find some aspects that we have to improve, that we have to update, and that we have to change. So with this in mind, we want to suggest a challenge here today. I go for it now at 7:15, yeah? Well, you are going today to be pupils of a home expert group activity, which is a common practice in the CLIL lessons that we use in our schools. Today, maybe you know this type of activity because you've done, I think that most of you are teachers. Yeah, so maybe you do it in your classes with your pupils, but you've never experienced it as pupils. So today, you're going to have the chance to do that. I'll explain what we're going to do. First, Maite is going to be your science teacher today. She's going to talk about a topic. And you're going to split in groups of 4. But I know that you are 22, so there are going to be 2 groups of 5, doesn't matter. Okay, this is the first thing, to split in groups. Then we're going to give you a piece of paper with some information about this topic related to science. These are the papers. Each group of 4 is going to have 4 papers of with the same color, but each one has got a different number. After giving you these papers, all the number 1s of each group is going to go to one side of the class, number 2s there, number 3s, and number 4s. And what do you have to do? What you have to do, next slide, Maite, okay. What you have to do is you have to read the piece of information you've got, and you've got the same, all the number 1s are going to have the same. You have to try to understand it and share if you have any problem with any vocabulary or so. And finally, you're going to go back to the first group, and each one is going to explain the other classmates about this excerpt of information. All right? So you're going to learn from your classmates. Okay, so we can start. Here, I do it for you. Then, let's start. But the thing here is that, is your English good with science? Yes, I'm sure it is. But today, this class is going to be in German. Okay? So, Maite is going to be our German science teacher today. And I am going to be the support teacher. I'm going to speak in English with you.
Hallo, guten Tag.
Guten Tag.
Guten Tag.
Then this is, we start CLIL in our school with 3rd graders. And in 3rd grader classes, we always are 2 teachers. There are always 2 teachers there. All right? The science teacher that always speaks in English, and the support teacher that can use Catalan if necessary. All right? So today Maite is going to speak in German, and I'm going to help you. I don't think that you're going to need any help, but I'm here just in case. All right? So let's start. You're going to learn about the photosynthesis.
Ja.
All right?
Ja, also wir lernen die Pflanzen. Ja, aber die Silvia, bitte. Silvia, bitte, Hilfe. Hilfe.
Because I have to tell you something that is important for you to help you understand about this.
Die Pflanzen und die, was ist die?
Die is an adjective. It's an article, sorry. I'm not very good.
Das ist ein Artikel im Plural.
Yeah.
Und dann gibt es 3 Artikel. 3 Artikel.
There are 3 articles. Die
ist feminin und Plural. Der ist maskulin und das ist Neutrum. Also 3 Artikel auf Deutsch. Und Pflanzen.
And also, nouns are written in capital letters in English.
Aber nur das erste Vokal, also das erste, nur das P.
Okay.
Gut, danke. Ja, also das Thema ist die Pflanzen. Pflanzen und eigentlich die Photosynthese, das ist das Thema, die Photosynthese. Ja? Also, bitte. Also ein bisschen einige Vokabeln für das Thema, Vokabeln und dann ist klar. Ja? Also, ja, Vokabeln. Also Wasser ist ein Nomen, ja, das ist ein Wort. Wasser, W, groß. Und das ist das Wasser, Neutrum. Das Wasser, ne? Wasser. Hier ist das Wasser. So wie auf Englisch. Englisch, ne? Water, auf Deutsch das Wasser. Ne? Alles klar? Super, Wasser, Wasser. Gut. Bitte. Dann hier ist die Licht. Die Licht. Feminin. Feminin. Und auch ein Substantiv. Licht. Mit L. Substantiv L groß. Ne? Also Substantiv. Die Licht. Die Licht hier. Hier ist kein Licht. Ja, Licht. Licht da, aber da ist schwarz. Schwarz, dunkel. Ne? Aber hier ist Licht. Super. Toll. Hier ist die Temperatur. Noch ein Substantiv. Substantiv. Temperatur. T ist groß, Substantiv. Und die Temperatur. Maskulin, feminin oder Neutrum? Feminin, toll, super, ganz gut. Das ist feminin. Gut, danke bitte. Und dann haben wir die Luft. So wie zum Beispiel die Lufthansa. Lufthansa, ne? Lufthansa, ne? Lufthansa, also Luft ist die Luft. Die Luft ist hier, ne? Die Luft. Die Luft. Ja? Okay. In der Luft, ja, stimmt, so ist es. Super, danke. Und die Blätter, die Pflanzen haben Blätter oder da sind auch Blätter, ne? Ein Blatt, Blatt, Papier, Blatt, Blatt, Plural, Plural ist die Blätter, ja? Die Blätter, Plural. Und das ist eine Pflanze. Pflanze, das ist eine Pflanze. Ja? Alles klar? Alles klar? Die Pflanzen, die Pflanzen, die Pflanzen. Ja, die Pflanzen, Pflanzen. Gut, super. Gut. Und das ist die Photosynthese. Photosynthese. Was passiert? Was passiert? Also, da haben wir die Mineralien und das Wasser. Das Wasser transportiert die Mineralien, ja? Und die Pflanze hat Lichtenergie und Kohlendioxid. Ne? Und Lichtenergie, Kohlendioxid und dann das produziert Sauerstoff, das produziert Sauerstoff und das produziert Wasser. Also Wasser, Mineralien, das Wasser transportiert Mineralien und dann da kommt Lichtenergie, dann Kohlendioxid und das produziert Sauerstoff. Sauerstoff, was ist das? O2, richtig. Und Wasser, ne? So ist es. Super. Also, Sílvia, glaubst du, Sie sind gut?
It's good.
Ja, Sie sind super, ganz gute Schüler. Ne? Also, das Wasser ist klar? Ja. Und die Blätter? Super, richtig. Dann die Licht, ja. Dann die Temperatur. Hier ist warm, hier ist ja warm auch. Ne? Die Luft, ne? Das Klima, das ist ein Problem im Moment, glaube ich. Das Kohlendioxid und der Sauerstoff, O2. Ne? Gut, also jetzt machen wir eine Arbeiten. Also, ja, lesen und reflektieren. Lesen und Reflexion, ja? Alles klar? Alles klar? Super, die sind super, ganz gute Schüler. Also.
Now this is the moment where you have to split in groups of 4, please.
Ja, also 4.
Well, maybe it's up to you, but maybe as like you are sitting here. So.
Also 4, 2, 3, 4 noch. 2, 3, 4. Bitte schön. 2, 3, 4. Hier, 4 noch. Ja, 4. Ist egal. Oder 5, zu 5. Und dann noch 5. 5 hier. 5. Super. Moment mal. Nee, Moment. Jetzt Experte. Wir wollen Experte. Ne? Also, die Nummer 1.
Now they have to, yes, number ones. You have to come to one side of these.
Nummer 1, aufstehen. Nummer 1.
Yes, you stand up.
1.
Because all the number ones, you have the same information. So you have to help each other to understand what you've got. Yeah?
Nummer 1.
Number 2 is here, maybe. Number 3 is there, and number 4 is here.
Oh, super, das ist eine ganz gute Schülerin. Was ist denn?
Auf Deutsch sprechen oder auf Englisch?
Das ist ja die erste Klasse, also ja, ist kein Problem.
Advanced student.
Nee, aber Moment mal, das ist ja alles 3 und 4. Nee, das geht ja nicht. Also die Nummer 1 ist da, dann die Nummer 2 ist da. 2.
And 4, where are number 4? Here.
2, 3 ist hier und 4. Jetzt bitte, Sílvia, Moment mal. Ja, alles klar? 1 ist gut. 2 hier, 2, gut. 3, super. Und 4, toll. Also jetzt bitte ein bisschen Reflexion, ja, ein bisschen lesen und 3 Minuten interpretieren. Alles klar? Super, los.
We give you 2 minutes, right?
2 Minuten.
To do that.
How do you say O2?
Das ist Sauerstoff oder O2.
But I don't understand the first part. But it's cold weather, maybe something is like cold weather, not good for photosynthesis.
I don't know if we have to explain that in English.
Ja, nur kapieren, verstehen, interpretieren, stopp. Interpretieren, stopp. Ja?
No, it's not water. It's what means. And what is source?
We will have to know English,
I forgot about it.
Ist kein Problem, kein Problem.
Or maybe this is the warning is the cold weather, not good for photosynthesis. Maybe this is the right temperature and warm. I don't know.
Die Blätter nehmen das Kohlendioxid, Wasser und Energie. Das Produkt
Also die Blätter nehmen Kohlendioxid, Wasser und Energie. Das Produkt ist Sauerstoff. Ne? Und das Produkt ist Sauer. Und dann, das ist die Photosynthese. Stimmt, so ist das. Ja. Also,
Or
wollen wir Also, hier ist jetzt rot, ne? Und wir haben Experte für Nummer 1. Experte, wer ist Expert für Nummer 1? Experte für Nummer 1? Du bist Expert. Ja, klar. Experte für Nummer 2? Gut. Und für Nummer 3? Und für 4? Also, die sind alle Experte. Sie sind super. Ne? Klar, super. Und da gelb, Experte für 1, 2, 3, 4 und so weiter. Ne? Also, dann ist kein Problem. Sie sind super.
super. Yeah.
Super, Sie sind alle Experte.
Yeah.
Also jetzt
All of
machen
them.
Sie einen Test.
Ein Test.
Ja, stimmt.
Oh my.
Jetzt bekommen Sie einen Test.
Okay, I think that they are good enough.
Ja, also da geben wir
Okay.
Ihnen so einen Test. Ne?
But
Also,
they have to explain
ja,
to your other classmates about their exert of the stop.
ja, also da macht ihr den Test zusammen. Zusammen. Also 4, Expert 1, 2, 3, 4 zusammen, Test. Alles klar? Ja, also die Sílvia, ja.
Here you are, one for each one. But you help each other, you do it in all
Ja, also helfen. Bitte,
In Deutsch oder in Englisch?
das ist alles Deutsch. Deutsch. Zusammen, ja stimmt, sehr gut. Jetzt habt ihr 2 Minuten für den Test, ne? Oder 3 Minuten vielleicht. 3 Minuten. Bitte.
Excuse me.
Ja,
Bitte.
bitte.
Das Wasser ist gut für die Photosynthese. Dankeschön.
Bitte schön.
Oh, sorry. Photosynthesis.
Segura. Sí. Bueno, hay más cosas, pero... no, seca. Vale, seca. Sí, pero... Temperature.
Sauerstoff.
Die Pflanzen überleben das so again plants produce so oxygen.
Have you done?
Ja, fertig?
All right. Then.
Ja,
Yeah. 1 minute left, so.
nee.
Plants. Yeah. Photosynthesis. It's photosynthesis.
Review.
So now, time to correct your exams.
Also, mal sehen. Also die Nummer 1 in der Gruppe. Lesen. Nummer 1 lesen. Lesen? Ja, super.
Das Wasser transportiert Mineral.
Bitte klicken. Super, stimmt. Ganz gut. Die Gruppe 2 da vielleicht. Jemand? Lesen? Das Wasser.
Das Wasser ist gut für die Photosynthese.
Photosynthese.
Gut, super, ganz toll. Bitte, die dritte Gruppe da.
Die grünen Blätter produzieren Sauerstoff.
Gut, ihr könnt alle Deutsch. Also das ist ja ganz interessant, ne? Da könnt ihr alle Deutsch. Gut, und die vierte Gruppe, Gruppe 4. Bitte?
With numbers. You have no idea about numbers.
Das ist 28 Grad bis 29 Grad ist die optimale Temperatur. Stimmt.
Very good.
Und dann die Nummer 5 noch, bitte. Die 5 hier.
Come on, who is this one? Who was number 3 here in this group? Come on, thanks.
Die Pflanzen refühlen das Klima.
Stimmt, so ist es. Toll. Also, das war eine ganz gute Arbeit. Also bitte, Sílvia, das war alles sehr gut. Sehr gut. Gute Arbeit. Sehr gut. Ihr seid ganz gut mit Deutsch. Ne? Ganz gut mit Deutsch. Die Pflanzen ist klar und die Photosynthese ist klar. Ne? Könnt ihr Deutsch sprechen? Also, who can speak German here? Who can? Oh, some people can speak German. So 1, 2, 3, a little bit. Well, so a little bit. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You're good too. A little bit. No? Well, but it was good. Your pronunciation was good. So some people had some German already. And
Can I try to ask you a question in German?
oh yes, of course, please.
To see if it's okay.
Yes.
Können Sie die Temperature repetieren?
Ja, können Sie die Temperatur wiederholen? Das ist wiederholen. Wiederholen. Also die Nummer, das ist ja 28 umgekehrt und 29. Ja, ganz gut aber. Das war ganz gut. Ne? Super. Toll. Also das war das Thema die Pflanzen. Ne? Gut. So, well, now we go back to English. It will be different. So now for a change, I suppose you enjoyed doing the German thing. But so you see, it was interesting, and we thought it would be interesting to do something like that, because I mean that's the situation our pupils face when they will have to do a subject in a different language. And perhaps you thought, oh well, that's going to be impossible. We're not going to do it. We're not going to succeed. But I think most of you succeeded, didn't you? So you made it, you managed to do that and to understand. Of course, I was monitoring the language I was using. I wasn't using the normal words like produzieren and regulieren and transportieren. And these are words which exist, but I was trying to manipulate the language. But that's something we'll talk about. So, but to begin with, we decided to go for CLIL because in our school we found that, we wanted to push the level of English. We found that our pupils were doing more hours of English. We were trying to invent situations, simulations and things, but we still needed something else to make it become real, to really make the pupils feel that there was something they could do which would help them improve their level of English. And that's why we considered starting with CLIL, right? So that's what we did, and we think it was a good decision. So, yes.
How did we do it? Because we cannot just start teaching a subject in English, and most of us were English teachers, but we had no idea about the strategies that we had to use that are different to teach another subject that is not language. So we needed to be taught different techniques, and well, this is what we did the year before we started the implementation. The activity that we just presented you with is an activity where you can see this type of strategies that we have to follow and we have to take in mind. The groups, what you have to do is you resort to previous knowledge, because you all have knowledge as our students about the different topics, and you all establish connections between the vocabulary in German and the vocabulary in your mother tongue or in English or in other languages, and maybe you have some knowledge about them. Temperature is similar to in the word in Catalan and the word in English. Regulieren is also, you can think about the meaning of this word. Maybe they are false friends, and then this is another problem. But you could get access to the content easily, right? Couldn't you? Yes, you could. And the teacher, as Maite said, provided you some scaffolding, like manipulating the texts. So we are not going to give you, for third graders, text that it's difficult with difficult language structures, and that they are going to be crossed at the beginning with it. So this is something that is really important, to give them easy vocabulary, easy structures that they can understand. And also we used visual contexts. And Maite was also miming, yes, showing you lived outside. Well, I don't know how did you say it in German, but we use a lot of miming in class, all right, to make sure that they get access to the content.
Right, so of course, as we said before, so we thought, well, let's do something different. Let's try with CLIL. We talk about a teenage challenge. So it's something we started doing 16 years ago, and it's something we considered about 18 years ago. So a long time ago. We were at the beginning of CLIL, and it's a challenge that we considered, but we were a bit worried with it. Not everybody was in favor of CLIL. Some people thought, well, it's a bit too risky. Some people thought, well, that's the ultimate thing towards learning a language. So what we did is we resorted to university. We went to, well, we looked for somebody who would help us with that. And we got in touch with professors from the UAP and from Pompeu Fabra, and they set up a program with us. And well, we will tell you about that. And it's very interesting because a few years later they came back to us, and there was a thesis on the experience that we had in our school, and that was a thesis which perhaps you can have access to, or perhaps you've read something about it, by Dr. at the moment now Dr. or Professor Elena Rouquet. And the thesis was a study of the acquisition of English as a foreign language, integrating content and language in mainstream education in Barcelona. So that's based in the case in our school. And the research question at the moment, or the research question was improvement in English language learning is there when science in English is added to the conventional English language subject. And of course she was comparing a group that had been exposed to science, or that was exposed to science, with another one that hadn't been exposed to science, right? So she took different years, and she took many samples, but in the end she only compared these samples, so the samples of second of SO and third of SO, and she checked what happened between these 2 years, and this was a group that hadn't been exposed to any CLIL. And then she took these groups, and these were the first groups that had been doing CLIL. So they had more hours of English. So they had 210 hours of CLIL plus 1,120, because it was first of SO, of English. And here again, some CLIL and a little bit less English, because again, it's second of SO. And the results were that there was an improvement, a significant improvement in the writing. There was an improvement in the grammar, and there was an improvement in reading. So that was scientifically tested. And from our intuition in class, we can really say that when we see the pupils, I mean, they can really read very sophisticated texts. And it's not something that they do because you say, well, now you do a reading and you answer it, and you skim and you do this and that. Which it can be a little bit boring. I mean, they have to do it because it's communicative, it is real. They're going to be tested on that. They need to understand it just like you had to do because you wanted to understand it. You didn't know that you were going to have a test, but it was communicative. And I hope you will have learned about Wasser and Licht and Lufthansa and Luft, right? So it was communicative, I think, and that's what happened. And we see that every other day in the school, in the classroom, right?
And all this guidance also included implementation process. First of all, why did we pick science as the subject to be taught in English in our school? How did we get ready for that as teachers? What information do we give the families? Because I had no idea about this. It was 16 years ago, so a long time ago. The teacher training, because this was important for us to feel comfortable that what we do is the correct thing to do and that we have dear strategies to use in class. How do we teach content and how do we assess our pupils? The process of the implementation and the progress. How do we start and what can we do at the beginning with them, the different things that we do in class, and then what we do when they are older. So why did we pick science? This was the first decision to be taught in English. The first subject to be taught in English in our school. Sorry. Because we found that at the beginning, when they are very young, all the topics that are related to English and English books and English tales, they are related to science or to nature or to the human body. So they have lots of vocabulary, they have different background, and this is good for them because, well, something that they knew. They've got vocabulary related to that. It is also a visual subject. It is based on experience. It's not based on language. And this was also a good point. I've got a problem with this. No, that's okay. Then the scientific vocabulary, as you saw in the German short class, is similar to other languages, all the scientific vocabulary. So this is also another point. And in the science classes, there is enough exposure to the language for them to work on the different skills. There is reading, comprehension, there is speaking, there is a lot of listening. So this was another good point for picking science as the subject to be taught in our school.
Right, another point that we mentioned was the preparation. That was really important. As I said, we started considering that about 18 years ago. It was very new, it was a challenge. And teachers were a bit afraid, they were scared of doing that. Even class teachers, not English teachers, or class tutors, they thought, oh God, what's this, right? So we needed teacher training. So there was a teacher training for the teachers who were going to the CLIL, who were basically in primary, they were the primary teachers, the English teachers. But there was teacher training also for the class teachers, for the tutors, right? Because these were the teachers who were going to convince families. So whenever there would be a meeting with parents, they would have to tell the parents that that was the right decision to take, that there was no problem with that. And when we had the teacher training, the class tutors, they all had the teacher training, and they all had the same experience you just had with German, they had it with English. And many of them, they didn't speak any English at all, and they were all very convinced that it was possible to have science in English, right? So it was important to inform everybody about the process. So there's the teacher training. Then as Sílvia said, it was important to decide the subjects, but it was also important to think about the hours of English that we had. So we extended the number of hours of English that we had in the school to make sure that we would cater for all the needs that the pupils would have. And then another decision to be taken was whether to have the full subject in English or just a part of it. And at the time, in some schools, they went for just a part of it. So let's say that you do the animals and you only do birds in English, but the rest will be in Catalan. So there was something of that. There were experiences like that at the time. So we decided to go for English as a whole subject, for science as a whole subject, just science. And it's very interesting because now after 16 years, you talk to the pupils in our school, or you overhear pupils from our school talking to other students from other schools, and they will say, well, I've got exams these days, which is really happening, and I've got mathematics, and I've got Catalan, and I've got science, and their friends will say, well, science. because for them it's not coneixement del medi, it's science. They call it science, just like that. And I think it's important that they think, well, science is science, it's in English and this is it, right? So I think that was a good decision. Another decision that was taken was to have the same teacher of it for English and science in primary. And that helps because then of course the teacher can really know what the pupils will know. I mean, he can really accommodate the language of science to what's expected from the children or from the pupils, because of course they know what they can have or they can understand. And finally, another decision was to have 2 teachers in the classroom in cicle mitjà, just like we now had, right? So there's another teacher that's a kind of support. It can make some of the pupils feel more relaxed, or if the teacher sees that somebody's staying behind because they're having difficulties, they can always go, the teacher can go to that pupil and give them, help them. And so we talked about the preparation, but so that's looking to inside the school. We talked about what happens inside the school, but what about outside the school? So there's that with the teachers, but then the parents, when we told them, or when they started hearing that there was the possibility of doing science, some of them were very happy to hear about that, but some were a little bit worried. So they had to be informed properly. So information was very important, it was essential. They needed to know that the project wasn't just something like that, it had been prepared, it had been thought about, and we had some background. So we decided to write a brochure, right, for the families in Catalan, explaining what that was. Again, I repeat, it was 16 years ago, right? So questions were, què és l'aprenentatge integrat de continguts i llengües estrangeres? ICLE, we called it, per què és eficaç un programa ICLE, en quins nivells i matèries escolars és millor iniciar un programa d'aquestes característiques, right? Oh, right, okay, fair enough, right. So what's CLIL, right? Why is a CLIL program adequate? In which subjects and levels is it best to start with such a program? And then there was a frequently asked questions section with questions such as what does that imply for the pupils, or can it be a problem for pupils who have difficulties with first languages, or can it be more difficult for pupils who have difficulties with English? And they tried, in that leaflet, we tried to answer some of those questions. And that was written by these 2 professors from university, so it was really scientific. It's not something that we wrote, it was written by these 2 teachers at university, right? And at the same time, what we did is we publicized it in the school web. So here it says, CLIL, this year, 2002-2003, we've just started teaching science in our school. Our school, I think we didn't mention that, is called Escola Betània Patmos, right? So that was what we did with the parents, or how we informed the school community about our project. But then how did we face the teacher training in our school? So, as we said, 2002-2003, we started with the project, but the year before, we started with the teacher training after having taken all those decisions, and that was more or less the syllabus of the teacher training we had. Of course, there was it's a very reduced syllabus here, right? It's just a very thin summary of it. A definition of CLIL, how to design a unit, of course, a didactic unit, syllabus, methodology of CLIL in the classroom. We have roughly told you about the methodology, or we've tried to show something of it. And of course we talked about the resources in the CLIL classroom. Another thing to be considered is that at the time there was no internet. So anything we created, we had to do with the books that we bought from England, or when we went to England, we bought loads of things, and then we had to do loads of photocopying and things. We used, I think, the first book that was ever created for CLIL in science, and we had to produce our own workbooks, right? So there was a lot of work, creating worksheets and things. But that implied a lot of thinking and revising how we did things. And then on the second year, we did something which was also very important, which was, well, consider what the assessment techniques would be, and then, of course, monitoring the whole process, or monitoring what we would be piloting, and, of course, adjusting the project. I'm saying here that was done 2002, 2003, adjusting, but I must say it's not really adjusted. I mean, adjusting is something that has to be done at all times. I mean, we're always adjusting, we're always monitoring CLIL and just anything we teach. So you never finish with that project, really. Right.
Obviously, the use of new technologies helps us a lot nowadays, but years ago, there were no online material, not a lot for it, and as Maite said, when somebody went to London, maybe for the weekend, yes, we asked them, oh, please buy something related to science books, something that you can find that can help us in our classes. And because we spent lots of time creating our own flashcards, our own material, and so on. We also remember recording the native teachers from the school, because obviously there is a lot of vocabulary that you don't know how to pronounce, that this is specifically from science. So we recorded them and we had to spend some time preparing our knowledge also about the subject. And this was, well, it took a time, it took some time, yes, to get ready for that implementation for us, this training. Collaborative activities like the one that you have experienced today are also very useful in class. Now we are going to show you a worksheet. This worksheet is a third grader's worksheet. I think it's the first one they do when they start science. So they begin, their first science contact is with this activity. They work in pairs, so that we want to make sure they only have a photocopy for each pair, because we want to make sure that they talk about it and they discuss, they decide the answer, sharing their knowledge about this. And you'll see in a video that there is the science teacher in class and the support teacher. Accept.
Classify the words. Banana, so much, insect, legs, bear,
Very good.
chocolate, cheese,
Now, do the cheese, please. Cheese.
cheese, cobra, meat, eggs, cheese.
Now, with all those words, we have to write them in 3 groups. Can you tell me which groups, Julia?
Body,
Very good. So I get to classify all those words in 3 sets. Yes? And this is going to be individual? No. How many people are going to write on the paper? 2. 2 together. Now, you will be 3. Yes? You will be 3 in your group. So you have to stand up. You have to stand up in your group. Okay? That's it. So you can start. Words give you color, related, all the things that are related to science.
body, plants, gestures, sound, animals, colors, and fruit.
And then everybody we speak normally. If we don't have to make a fuss. Okay? Good. Can you tell us, Ian, how many sets have we got? How many groups have we got? How many groups do we have
It's their first session with science,
Yeah,
so that's the whole point about that.
With a new subject. And also scaffolding helps a lot. This is an example of some posters that we've got in our classes. This is the door of the lab, of the laboratory class. And we give them some access, some quick access to the structures that they are going to need maybe to write their hypotheses, to write their conclusions on something, because we don't want language to be a problem. So they can get access to that information very quickly and to help them to produce their own work, even oral or be it oral or written, it doesn't matter. You don't have to forget that language is not assessed. Here we only assess contents. So for that, we are going to explain you how do we go work through a whole unit, all right? What we do first is there is always a first session, a first class with where we elicit the previous knowledge they have about the topic that we are going to start. The other day, for example, we started digestion, and what I did it in a different way. I gave them a piece of paper and I asked them to draw what they remember about the digestive system that they studied. I did it with 6th graders, sorry, and they have been working on the digestive system also in cuarto primaria. So they had some information about this. And after watching their their drawings and having a look at them and seeing some tracheas there in the digestive system or some lungs and so on, well, there's some work to do here. And then, well, this is the first thing to do in all the units. And then we also give them a piece of paper with the contents that we are gonna work, that they have to learn, and even the resources where they can study, where they can review these contents. So pages are from the book, or maybe photocopies we give them in class, or maybe some videos that we post them in their school site. Okay, so it's easy for them and for the families if somebody needs some help to know where to study from. Yeah, because we follow a book, but it's not only the book. They have notes, they have and other resources where to study from. The plan of the unit is this, okay? We do this photocopy. Then we work on the unit with the book, and there is a lot of note taking with 5th graders and 6th graders. 3rd and 4th, not yet. Then there is, at the end of this unit, there is always a revision of the content, a revision lesson, a revision class, session. And here, it's different. With 3rd graders, what we do is that we give them some photocopies that we call them the Remember photocopies, where we sum up all the contents that they've been learning, and they can study from there. But with 5th and 6th graders, we do it orally. Maybe they have some questions to ask, some doubts. Maybe we can prepare an activity to do that day. Maybe they prepare exams among them. Yes, one group prepares an exam for another group. Or games, well, imagination here. Obviously, it's science. There are lab activities and they write their lab reports. In some of them, there is 1 or 2 experiments in each one of the units, and sometimes we have 2 teachers in class because there is a teacher from secondary that helps us sometimes with some of the experiments, and this is also really helpful. The review class and then the assessment, and we assess in different ways. We assess some of the worksheets that we do in class, some of the activities that we do with them. Some of them are in groups, some of them are individual. We assess the lab reports, and then there is also a test. Okay. Here you can see this was my second class with working on the digestive system. I am very bad at drawing. They know it. I think it's famous in the school. And to help me explain this system, I use this material too. Okay, we are very lucky in our school because we can combine both. Yeah. Then here, as we are watching the video, I stop, I explain, maybe I draw some information here. But what's interesting, I think, and I think it's very, very helpful for them, is that on one side of the board, I list down the vocabulary that it's necessary for them to explain some processes. So you've got like breakdown, crush, soften, moisten, swallow, okay? Then I think that this is very interesting when you do it in class, and they know it and they write it down, because they know that then when you're going to ask them to explain something or to write something, they need these words. They take notes about it. Maybe some of them just copy my notes. Sometimes I take a picture of the board and they've got it in their school's site and they can print it or, well, have a look at it there. These are some of the notes that they take during classes. The problem here is that maybe there is some information here that does not appear in the book. So if you want them to study from your notes in class, or from their notes that they take in class, you have to make sure that they've got more or less the same. So how do we do that? Because here, for example, this pupil has got information about the epiglottis. It's a flap of tissue that closes the trachea when we swallow. But this one has nothing about the epiglottis written here. So the next session, we always begin with some questions, and we go to the important ones. So we make sure, have a look at your notes. Have you got that information in it? So then at the moment they copy from the other classmate, and we make sure that they've got everything they need. And it's good, isn't it? They are average students. They are not the best ones in class. Okay, so they take notes. I think that they are very good at it. At the beginning it's difficult, but they get used to it. This is the Remember worksheet for third graders. This was about senses, and as you can see, they do not have to write, yes, in English. They have to read and understand, but this is a filling the gaps activity. They have to describe a process, but no, here, they have to write the 5 senses, only words. Label the parts of the eye. Here they have to explain the process only with words. They don't have to use complex structures here. So here there is another true or false activity where reading comprehension is the skill. The ears are the organs for hearing, true or false. The eye is the organ for touch. The taste is hard, soft, rough, and smooth. So this type of vocabulary, if they don't learn it in science, sometimes it's difficult that they learn it in English, or that they use it in a natural way. And here they've heard it many times, and they use it many times. So this is vocabulary that they've got it. Yes? They learn. Here we have to tell you that we saw that there is a spelling mistake. Sorry. Hearing, there is a G missing. So pleasant, unpleasant. This type of activities also help them to organize the information, and it is also really visual. Yeah, we do them a lot. Sometimes we do them with big papers. So this is where they study from. They study from here. Yes, and this is a test. As you can see, more or less same type of activities. True or false, reading comprehension here, filling the gaps. A process with words, another completing activity, not filling in the gaps. Third graders, yes? In fourth grade, we do not have any example of each school year, so, but with fourth graders, there are more or less the same, but there is 1 or 2 activities where they have to explain something, yeah? Maybe we can give them some vocabulary here, some scaffolding, yes, to help them. But they start. And these are 6th graders' lab report. This is from an average student, and this one is really good. But I cannot see a lot of difference. Yeah, maybe I can read you, for example, the hypothesis of this one. We were working on classifying arthropods, building a dichotomous key here. And she says, for example, my hypothesis wasn't correct. We do a dichotomous key about the number of legs. I learned that a caterpillar is an insect, and a lot of insects do the metamorphosis. Also, a lot of general characteristics and physical. I think that is very
strange
to the caterpillar be an insect, but it's true. We have to tell you that we do not correct the spelling a lot, so they feel free to write. Yes, not like in the English classes when they have to write composition or something. Oh, they know that if the grammar is not correct, if there are spelling mistakes, yes, but here they feel really free to write. These are the steps that we are doing in the lab, and they have to explain. Maybe this one draws a lot and explains, well, it's correct, it's good, but, well, maybe there is more drawing, and the advanced pupil writes a little bit more. Yeah, but I'm gonna read this one so that you can compare. My hypothesis wasn't correct because we can't classify them by this exoskeleton, because all are arthropods and all arthropods have exoskeleton. We can't classify the arthropods in the 4 groups if they have pincers or not, because some crustaceans and some insects have pincers. I learned that to know what a caterpillar is, you need to think that it's a butterfly larva. So a caterpillar is an insect because a butterfly is an insect. Well,
so we see that we've been doing science in many years, from third of primary until 6th of primary, and we also continue with science in secondary. But how did we start implementing that? So we didn't just do everything in one go, because otherwise it would have been too much, and as you can see, it implies a lot of preparation. So we started, as we said before, 2002, 2003 with science in 3rd and 5th primary. And then, of course, those years are the years that went on. So that meant that, of course, following year, 2003 and 4, those pupils were in 4th and 6th. And then the following year, we started with science in 1st of SO. So that means 2004 and 5, we started with science in SO. And then we started with technology. Well, in 2nd of SO, that continues, of course, with science. But then in 3rd, we do technology, right? And then in 2008, 2009, we started with science for the contemporary world in primer de bachillerato, right? Which is 6th form or first baccalaureate. So that means that from 3rd primary until 3rd of SO, there's always some CLIL, and then in primer de bachillerato, first baccalaureate or 6th form, we've got science for the contemporary world. So we've got quite a lot of CLIL, as we can show you here. Now, what do we do in our school in terms of languages? So we start with English in infants, in nursery school, and we do what we call language hours. So we do that about half an hour a day. Infants 3 years old, what they do is routines and things like that with a language assistant. They're not really language lessons or anything like that. It's just routines and free play, something very routine based. Then infants 3, infants 4 year olds, they have these half an hour sessions, and they will do some phonics, but just from the point of view of pronunciation and songs and rhymes and things like that. Then in primary, in all 6 years, they will have about 4 hours of English, and added to that, there will be CLIL in 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, 2 hours per week, and that's science. We don't do the coneixement del medi social, so social science is just the natural sciences. And then we continue with English, of course, in secondary, where they will do about 4 hours of English per week, and we will have science in 1st and 2nd, as we said, technology in 3rd, and then oratory. We have oratory in English in 3rd and 4th of SO. And then, of course, we continue with English in bachillerato or baccalaureate, right? And we have 3 hours of English and then scientific culture. At the moment, it's called scientific culture. So when we started with that, it was called Ciències pel món contemporani, so sciences for the contemporary world, but now it's called scientific culture, and we just do it in first bachillerato. In second, we don't do any CLIL or anything because we're getting ready for the selectividad, right? So for the exam to enter university. And then as for second language, we do German and French, and that begins with sixth graders in sixth grade in primary, where they do 2 hours a week. And then they have 2 hours in first and second VSO, third, but in fourth they will have 3 hours of French or German. And then in bachelorette it is optional. Well, we try, of course, trying to implement CLIL in our school involved having a few more hours of English, exposure to English. And we think that it's been quite interesting. And we try to make sure that most of our pupils will get about a first certificate level. Some of them will take it, some of them will not, but a first certificate level roundabout for the VSO, and then in bachelorette many of them will have an advanced level, but of course it will depend on the pupil because some of them wouldn't have it in Catalan. Even if they're speakers, native speakers of Catalan, passing an FC exam in Catalan is not an easy thing. Right. So, and as for the second language, they will get roundabout an A2 level or B1 when it is French, because German, of course, is a lot more difficult, and that's optional, of course. Right, so we thought now that perhaps we could show you a few videos of how the pupils do in science, because perhaps you will know a little bit more about English as a first language, but perhaps, I don't know whether anybody is doing any CLIL in the school here, in this classroom. Is anybody doing CLIL? Yeah. Which years are you doing CLIL with?
Secondary.
Secondary, in which subject?
History.
History, right. And how do you feel about that?
Good.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, also, I mean, the other thing is that you can have access to many documents, I suppose, right? Many documentaries and many texts, and I think that's the interesting thing. And for history, it's very interesting. I mean, yeah.
And what do they do in primary? What do you do in your school in primary?
She does science.
Science. And how do you feel about that? Good. So perhaps we could share experiences as well. Right. Anyway, so we're going to show you what we do, right? And we thought that perhaps. Because we didn't know whether everybody would be experienced here or perhaps somebody was starting with it. So we thought that perhaps we could make you think about strategies that the teacher's using during the science, the CLIL session, right? And perhaps as you see the videos, you can think of something else. I'm sure you will be able to see the videos with different eyes than our own. And perhaps you can be a bit more critical as well. So we're asking, so we've got 4 videos. So the first one is 4th graders, 5th graders, 6th graders, and first VSO. So perhaps you can just tick which strategies you think they're using, and if you think that they're using other strategies, perhaps you can add them below or write other things, right? So like eliciting previous knowledge, whether they're using diagrams, using visual materials, whether they're note-taking, highlighting useful language, providing useful expressions, well, just anything else. So the first video was 4th graders.
Vegetables the second, Why not? They are not healthy. They are not healthy. Raise your hand when I say you can speak and you speak. Let's try. Yes, Mark? There is one that is not that is sugary food, but it is which one? The bunnies are good for your health, but this doesn't mean that ice cream, cakes, candy, muffins, cupcakes, whatever, they are not good for your health. They are good, because remember I said that your diet has to be balanced, and balanced means this means a lot of if I don't eat any sugary foods, is my diet balanced? No, I need to eat some. It's good to eat some and not a lot. Yes, it's clear. Yes. When you eat a lot of sugary food, you can be a little bit fat. This is what we're going to talk about today.
Okay, right. Well, then we've got one for 5th grade, and perhaps you can discuss them as a group afterwards, right?
What about these? Vital functions, only growth and reproduction? Yes. Interaction is a vital function. Respiration, active. To be active, is it a vital function? No. So where can we put this one? Here. Nutrition. Okay. Look at your books. Oh, what do you think? If we put they are active here, they are sensitive here, and this movement is one of the vital functions too. No? I put this here because I don't know when. Let's put it. It is fine. What you did, it was fine because you were explaining that being sensitive means that you move, that you interact, that you respond. Okay? They become bigger and stronger. Some reproduction. They produce offspring, newborn creatures.
Sixth graders.
So, what do we have inside our mouth? What is it that we put inside our mouth? John, tell me one. Okay, the salivary glands. Salivary glands. Another. The palate. Another. The tongue. And another one. That is one of the most important ones we eat. Alright. Then, these three have got a specific function that is related to the to crush food. We crush food with movement. Okay? These three are related to the movement. Because we need to crush food into smaller and smaller pieces. And then these smaller and smaller pieces that we crush down, they mix with the
John, what
not
do
with
you
the
say?
salivary glands, the saliva. Saliva is produced by the salivary glands, yeah? And saliva also has got two different functions. One,
Here we are just reviewing, and you can see that they've got their notes on the table so they can have a look at it.
okay, it moistens food, and it also
Right.
A trio of organs that break down food using an array of special juices. Third, the body's enzymes, hormones, nerves, and blood all work together.
What is blood doing here? Why is blood here in the digestive system? Here I think there. What is blood doing here in the digestive system? Luna.
Right, now I think before we continue, perhaps you can talk about the different strategies you've found in pairs or in threes, and then we can put it together and discuss it, and perhaps you can even tell us some techniques that you use yourselves or you would use, or what you see here. Perhaps we can give them like 3 minutes, and then we see the other video, because the other one belongs in ESO, right?
She does some mimics.
Can I have?
Oh yes, of course. I've got more than one. We've got many. Sorry for that.
I guess less hours. Then you do maybe more mathematics or more Catalan or more Spanish, maybe. Yeah. Or maybe more science.
So why not?
No, we reduce the hours because the hours are the hours. Yeah. You can be among the different subjects,
But I guess that in some ways.
they say how do we manage with all these
Hours, because we've got a longer day. You have a longer day, right? And then we combine it with the religion, which is done, and yeah. So we do combinations of things. Santpedor, Lliçà? A Lliçà de...
No, Escola d'Isaac.
Ah, vale, anava a dir Lliçà. També? Right.
So how many hours are you teaching Catalan?
1 hour from here.
Right. One.
music,
One.
per week. You've got 3.
It depends what the school specializes on.
Yeah.
Shall we continue?
1 hour and a half.
Shall we continue?
Okay.
Right. Now, well, I think perhaps we can discuss together what you saw, and perhaps there are things that we haven't seen and that perhaps you have seen, or that perhaps you can suggest, so perhaps you can help us as well, because, I mean, as I said before, we're coming to university, and the interesting thing for us to come back to university is to see what you can teach us. So I don't know, how did you feel about that, or what was your feel about it, at least for people who are in schools or who haven't been, or what did you expect, or what would you expect? I don't know.
I mean, for us, it was amazing, the level of English that you guys have at your school. But for example, maybe because we just started 2 years ago, maybe with all this CLIL project, the thing I missed in your videos that we do a lot is like to congratulate students.
All right, interesting.
Maybe because we just started, you know, and we want to create this environment of trust, and they feel confident to speak English.
That's a very good point.
For mistakes.
You know, maybe your students have a big level, a higher level, and they don't expect that. But for us, even in secondary students,
Yeah, but congratulating is a good point, and perhaps we should do more of that. That's a very good point. Thank you so much. Excellent point. Right. Yeah? Pardon?
Yeah, you did it with us.
Yes.
Oh yes, I did. I did. Well, in German I do it a lot. So that's a good point, because I teach German too, and I'm always congratulating with German, because I expect them to have more difficulties with German. So it's always like, oh, sehr gut, also gut, prima, toll. So I know a lot of words to congratulate. And in secondary it's quite tough. I mean, teaching German in secondary is a big job, because I mean, having to talk about accusative and things, and I congratulate a lot. But for English, with English we don't. We should do more of that. More things, because we've learned something already. More things, I don't know, or things that you do, or that you would do, or you've been told to do. I don't know.
Teachers miming, that's not on the list here.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Yeah. Yeah, we do a lot of that.
Yes.
But it belongs with teaching, I think. Another thing is that a CLIL teacher has a lot of a language teacher. So actually sometimes we're using some of the techniques as a language teacher to teach CLIL. And also in CLIL you have everything. You have reading, you have listening, you have writing. So you integrate all skills. And you integrate, well, because you're teaching a different language, you have to make yourself understood. So in CLIL you also do a lot of that as an extra resource. More things you experienced or you were surprised to find? The miming is interesting. No?
And we do mime a lot. Maybe the camera was something that...
We'll see that when we see the camera there. Right. Okay, now the last video, we stopped it here because we thought, well, that's primary, now we see ESO. Now you will see in ESO it's quite different. We're talking about adolescents, and of course they're not seated like that, it's more academic. And they're wearing their own clothes as well. And because it's a bit late and perhaps you're hungry, it's got an extra bonus at the beginning, which we were going to edit, but we thought, let's leave it there. Again, we continue and see what you see, right? And there's the extra bonus. In the beginning, first 2 seconds.
Tomou.
to laugh anyway. Come on. What are we going to do in this practice? We're going to do exactly the same that we are doing in the theoretical classes, but in a practical way. What happens with this topic that we are studying? Seasons, night and day, and so on. Everything is in 3 dimensions, and in the class, you just see everything on 2 dimensions on the board with the drawings that I do. But it's a lot better, yes, to see a model in 3 dimensions where you can really understand everything that you couldn't do it. Remember? No, the axis of rotation is not that one. Which is the axis of rotation? Can you touch it?
This one.
This one. Yes. From the one, it rotates. That's the axis of rotation. But the division between day and night, it was another name. Which one was it? Anybody remember? Vertical. It's starting to rise. So this person means waking up. Okay. So this person goes to school. Does all the classes. Okay. And then everything you studied for the personal exam, I am going to ask it at the end. And I'm not going to ask just 2 questions about that and a lot of questions about this. No. It's going to be... Okay? Do we see all the faces of the group? No. Raise up your hands and let's go. Okay, Johnny?
Because there's a phase of the that we don't see the moon, but it's there. Then we don't see the face.
So it's one of the faces that you don't see?
Yes.
And when I say one of the faces, what do I mean? Yes, or what do we mean when we say one face becomes one of the faces? Yes.
Yeah.
No, you don't know. What is it?
The moon doesn't rotate, so when there...
Whoa, let him talk. Go ahead. Mateo, just your thoughts. That's fine. If it's wrong, it doesn't matter. We'll continue.
It's like the moon is maybe this face, so it goes always like this, and it's here, we only see this face.
Okay. Would you like to add anything else? Alejandra?
That I think we don't see all the faces because the faces that we don't see are like shadow for us, but they're still there and they don't go away. They're like
They don't go away? The faces of the moon don't go away? What does that mean?
no, that they're still there but we don't see it.
It's still there, but and when I talk about the face of the moon, what do I mean with that? Or what do I mean with that? The face of the moon. What is the face?
That you only see part of the moon. Like if you divide the moon in two, you see one part and you can't see the other.
Okay. Okay, so can we try to represent that here? Can we try to represent that here? Yes, Natalia, come. Look at them. Her face. Smile. Her face is going to be the face of the moon that we see. Okay? And turn around, turn around, turn around, turn around. Okay, there. This part. This part of the head, the back part of the head, is the other side of the moon, the far away side of the moon, the dark side of the moon. Okay? Yes? Can you represent the movement, the revolution around the Earth?
No, because the air do like
The Earth should be
rotating.
rotating very well. So go on rotating. Be careful slowly so you don't get dizzy. Is that correct?
No.
Wait a second, Fiona.
The air have to do
The revolution? Rotation? No, the revolution. But there's no sound. We're just representing Earth and Moon. If we're focusing on Earth and Moon, because we want to understand why we don't see both faces of the moon.
Right. Well, so again, that was first of all, so it's different here. You see it's a different atmosphere. The sequence of the unit, well, it's about the same thing, and we saw some little bits of it. There was a lab sequence, there was the session in the classroom, and there was the teacher talking about the exams, which they will be starting tomorrow, actually. Some of them will be starting now, the revolution and the rotation of the moon and so on, right? But again, it's different. They're sitting like that in a more academic way. Any comments you wrote, any differences you found with primary?
They are acting, what they are learning.
Yes, yes. They're representing it, yes.
And
Please.
she's congratulating all the time.
Oh yes, he is. You're right. Yeah, you're right. Good point. So there should be more concept checking questions, you mean? Or that was? She's using some. Yeah. Yeah, of course, because I mean that's something that in the first video that we saw in fourth ESO, they were doing that. So the teacher was checking all the time. So she was asking questions to check whether they understood things or knew things. Yeah, that was a resource. Yeah, you're right, absolutely. Yeah, she does a lot of that. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, quite right. Anything else?
Sometimes we also ask the pupils to tell the others what they understood, because sometimes they understand what another classmate explains better than us.
Yeah, there was something which was very interesting. I don't know whether you noticed in the video. So there was this boy here who was playing with a pen and showing a colleague at the back, yeah, but it goes like this, and he was insisting on that. I don't know whether he saw it, but he couldn't stop laughing. I mean, it was really funny. It was very sweet. Well, anyway, so that's a bit of a taste of what we do in science. We didn't really video the older ones, but I think that there were many people here of primary, and that's why we didn't really insist on that. Anyway, what was the situation at the moment with CLIL at school? So, well, you saw the grid of what we've got. As I said, or as we've said before, science is a subject already. I mean, for us, we don't talk about coneixement del medi or something like that. It's science, and this is it. Over the years, we've seen that there's a significant improvement of the level of English of our pupils in all skills. We prepare them for the first certificate in fourth vessel, but I must say that the speaking is the skill where they have the least difficulties. They're really good at speaking, I think. And they use the language in a very natural way. And then, of course, they will be exposed to really sophisticated language. It's not always the same word. So they will be exposed to words such as smooth in third of primary, for example, which is something that you don't really have to teach. It comes naturally, right? And they will communicate and understand things because they have to and because they need to. It is a real need, and that makes it really significant. What's important when you implement such a program? Of course, it's very important that everything will be coordinated because it implies a lot of effort. I mean, you're working on that, so it implies a lot. It's not just something that you can decide to start with and then you just do it. It needs some preparation beforehand. So we had this teacher training, and the year before we started preparing materials for it as well. And you need some coordination. In our case, what we do is that well, perhaps in third primary there will be 3 teachers will be teaching science in English, but one of them will be in charge of that person will be the one preparing all the materials for third of primary. And then somebody will prepare the materials for fourth primary, and another teacher will prepare the materials for fifth primary, and then we will share, because otherwise if everybody has got to do everything, that's a lot. And of course we've got a corpus of activities and materials which you always try to improve and well, update and things, but you've got a basic corpus of things.
Excuse me, you don't teach any science at all in Catalan? Not medi social, not medi natural?
No, only in third of SO. Only in third of SO. In third of SO they do technology, okay, and that's when they will do it in Catalan. Okay. But in third primary, if I'm not mistaken, they're also given the equivalent. So they're given the equivalent of the words in English and in Catalan, because otherwise they might not learn what un pulmó is. So the lungs are the pulmó, because otherwise what's a pulmó? They wouldn't know what that is in Catalan. Okay. So in third primary they will be given the equivalent.
Okay, and last year we took the competencies básicas for the first time in maybe social,
natural, in science.
How was it at your school?
That was good.
Good.
That was good.
Good.
Yeah, it was really good.
We have to tell you that these exams were mostly reading comprehension.
Yes,
but there was no problem with the vocabulary. No problem. They understood everything. So good. We were like a little bit scared. Let's see what happens. But it was great.
Mm-hmm. Right. So again, planning, coordination, and of course, one step at a time. You can't just try and do everything or do all the years without any preparation. I mean, it needs a lot of preparation, coordination, and do it little by little. But then, as one professor always said, one of the professors we were in contact with, she said learning a language has got like 3 legs. And one leg will be academic English, or being taught English in a proper English lesson. Then clearly can be another leg. And then a third leg will be being exposed to the real language, perhaps traveling to the country or to countries where English is spoken, or in our case, for example, nowadays, sometimes English comes to our country or French comes to our country. We've got Netflix, we've got books, we've got many things. So having access to the real thing, right? So these would be the 3 legs towards language learning. And in that respect, in our school, we do a series of activities that we call international, towards the internationalization of our school. Some of them will be with mobility, other activities we do will be without mobility. With mobility, pupils in 5th and 6th primary, they can go to England for a month. It's an activity that we prepare, and they go to a school and they will be in a boarding school, so it's a real program. It's not something they do in the summer. They will go in September and they will attend lessons, everything. So immersion, a real immersion program. They can do in fifth grade and in 6th grade. It's optional, of course. In ESO, we also organize the possibility that they will go to England for a term. But I mean, very few families will go for that because it's very expensive. But it's a chance we give them. They have the chance to do that. We organize it. They can go, right? Then we also take part in MUN activities with first bachelorate, with sixth form. That's becoming quite popular at the moment. This MUN, this model United Nations activities, and we also organize one in the school. So that's something that they really like, and it helps them to really learn about the world. And as for French and German, we do exchanges with France and Germany. Just before Christmas, they'll be going to France and Germany, right? So that is for, and well, we've got school trips and things, but that's not connected with the department. But these are a few of the activities that we do with mobility. Then without mobility, and that's something that we call kilometer zero. And that's quite important because, I mean, I must say that at the moment, you can learn a language without moving, without staying, without going anywhere, because everything comes to us. We've got the internet, we've got everything. So without mobility, what exposure have we got, or can we promote from the school? So we've got the language assistants. We've got language assistants in our school who go to infants, they go to primary, and they go to secondary, and they're language assistants who don't speak a word of Catalan or Spanish, and that's very useful. We try to promote multicultural activities as well. So if there's a pupil who comes from Russia or from China or from wherever, we try and organize activities where they will share different cultures in 6th grade or in 3rd of ESO, for example. We have theatre plays in primary, basically not in secondary. In secondary, and in bachelorate, we have conferences in English. We get people to come and give conferences, or sometimes even Skype conferences. We've got an online reading project with a program from England for primary, where we get them to read different books on an online platform, and that's something which we quite like and they quite enjoy, because they read books. We don't like the abridged versions. I mean, we don't like those the short ones and so on. We don't like them. So if we don't like them, we can't get them to like them. So we go for the real thing, even if it's short. That makes it quite difficult for us to find real books in the ESO section, because it's quite, they can be either very girly or very childish or very long, but we fight for it and find something in the end. There's a possibility of doing international baccalaureate online, so some pupils will do that, but that's optional again. And then we also organize a model United Nations conference in our school only for our pupils in 4th of ESO. So these are opportunities that the pupils can have without having to travel, because not everybody can afford to travel to spend a month or 3 months abroad. And we have many pupils who've got a very good level of English and who have never traveled. Most of them, or many of them, will have traveled, but I mean, you don't need to. You can still get a good level with this and also other things that they may do, right? And of course, there's always a lot to be done. And with the internet and with globalization, I mean, the process never ends. And again, we've come back to university to see what you can tell us, and well, to try and continue learning. So this is it. So perhaps you can ask us some questions and we can try and learn something from your questions. So this will be about it. So we're looking forward to your questions, basically, right? So, well, perhaps somebody has got some experience to share. Yes, please.
Having the same troubles than you finding books for ESO.
Oh yes.
Because we try not to read the adaptations, and it's, as you said, it's very difficult. Either they are too long or too difficult. So I'm trying. I stopped buying the adaptations. So last year we didn't read.
We hate them.
Yeah. But this year I found some short stories And I'm gonna try to give it a shot with like, I don't know, 6 pages, like some Oscar Wilde short stories, James Joyce, so I don't know if you
With
can...
6th grade.
No, with ESO, second
With
grade.
ESO.
Yeah.
So if you had any recommendation of a book that it's really worked for you?
What we do, because they like watching films,
Yeah.
is we try to look for books which will have a film.
Okay.
Because otherwise, from previous experiences, then the classics, first of ESO and so on, sometimes they found them difficult. But that was our experience. If you want, when we're finishing, we can tell you a few titles we have that we're using.
Are you reading Roald Dahl in first of ESO now?
We read Roald Dahl and
First grade.
Horace Henry. So some of the books that, of course, the thing is that they will be for younger kids. So it's books that they read in England or in the States in primary, and then we read them in ESO. And then we look for books which will have a film, and that makes it more interesting for them. Like, for example, in second of ESO, we're reading Coraline at the moment. It's quite short. Coraline.
Okay.
And there's a film. They love it. Coraline. And there's also, well, we look for books like that are for younger kids, because otherwise and it's difficult to have, or Boy in the Striped Pajamas, for example. That's easy. It's an easy read, and if you're a history teacher, it's very interesting. And there's a film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions? Anybody? Proposals? Ideas?
What's the last book you mentioned?
Which one?
Last book.
Yeah, last book, Boy in the Striped Pajamas.
Oh, the Boy in the Striped Pajamas.
Yeah, and there's the film, and you can do projects with that, and it's very useful because it's interesting to make them think, because not all of them are really aware of World War II and the Jews and so on. They find it very striking.
Sorry, what do you do with the books? Do they read them at home, or do you read them at
Well, no, we do a combination of things. Like, for example, Boy in the Striped Pajamas, we will do a project beforehand. They will have to do some research, so they will have the background knowledge to that. And after that, then we will do a combination of that. But normally, we will read a chapter per week in the classroom, and we'll discuss it, and we'll give them some vocab. In the Coraline book, for example, we've got a web page with a glossary as well, and Quizlet connected with that to learn the vocab of Coraline. With the Boy in the Striped Pajamas, there's that project, and then they will have to read the book, and they will have set questions per chapter that they will have to answer. And then there will be a question, or we'll discuss it. So we will have different techniques with every book. We try and read a book per term. And then in primary, we do this platform we've got. Any suggestions for book for secondary, anybody?
Yeah. I haven't tried yet, but I find it too difficult. Maybe if your level of English is more advanced.
Which one?
Ana Corredera recommended last year chocolate cake with Adolf Hitler.
Chocolate cake with Adolf Hitler. Right.
If you have a good level, I think she was reading that third of ESO, but it combines the previous time before World War and then after.
Right. We'll have a look at that.
I mean, there's no way I could do it with my students, but she said she really recommended to me. She used it and did a project about it, like you did with the boy in his striped pajamas. She was very happy about it, and I bought it. But when I read it, I thought, "There's no way, our students."
Yeah, sometimes something I do is I look for a book that I like, and then I go on Amazon, and then it will tell me people who bought this book also read. And then I follow that string, and then I check. Or when I go to England, I buy books, or my children, I've got teenagers, I've got different ages at home. And books they like or they read, then I check myself and see. Using your own children, but in my case they're growing up, so soon I won't have that test, but using somebody at home to help you. Or books that are being translated here sometimes. Like, for example, Horrid Henry. I love Horrid Henry. And they quite like it. I mean, for first ESO it's good. I've also used some of the stories, even with second ESO, to do some theatre plays with them. And they love it. And he shrieked and he said and he shouted and he did, and they love that. You just take one of the stories. And then there's the video. And it can be very infantile, but in the end of the day, even second ESO, they can be very young, very childish. If you go for that, I mean, you can always find the child even in second ESO if you want to. That's the way I see it. Anything else? Please. Any ideas to give me? I want ideas, we want ideas. Any books that you can recommend? Reading is an important thing, I think. I mean, again, everybody talks about traveling, but from my experience, I've experienced a lot with my own children. They've learned a lot here. They've read a lot. They've watched a lot of films. And just watching films here and reading a lot here can help you a lot to learn English. You don't need to go abroad. If you go abroad, then excellent. But you will learn a lot more here by reading and listening and watching films than anything else. And nowadays pupils, I mean, they're always on Netflix. It's just a matter of, well, getting them to really watch everything in English. And the minute they do it, then they get used to it. And hearing Sheldon Cooper talk in Spanish is horrible. So they get used to it, and it's really important to insist on that, I think.
Well, I haven't done it. I heard of it and I saw how they made it. In Escola, they are doing a project with reading, and they call it it's like First Dates, the program on TV. And there's like a menu of different books, and you choose some books from different menus and you exchange with other students in other schools ideas, and it's like sharing what you read, and maybe it's interesting for reading and talking in English.
First dates, so into sharing books with other pupils in other schools?
In other schools.
Oh, interesting.
Like, depending on what you chose on the menu of books, and they put it like all in a nice frame, so the students are super interested in
interesting.
Someone who likes the same books as I read.
Interesting. Well, that's a good idea.